Scratch Dragon. I will be commentating this match today. I will be joined by our good friend here, Zyrak. So, if you guys will give us 1 second to get this race kicked off. Oh, no one can hear me. Give me 1 second. Zyrak, are you there?
Yeah, I'm here.
Alright, give me 1 second. We'll get this started. I just need to make a few little changes here on the back end if you don't mind. Alright, there we go. Everything should be good now. So if you would just take over for a second here, Zyrak, while I go ahead and get these racers started.
Absolutely. Hey, everybody out there in RPG Limit Break. Welcome to tonight's race. Final Fantasy VI Kefka Narshe between TheLCC and Nitzguy1. Playoffs hype. We are in the first round with single elimination. Winner moves on, loser goes home. For anyone who's completely new to the tournament, there's a multi-party battle that occurs in Narshe roughly about somewhere around a quarter of the way through the game or so if you play through the entire thing vanilla, and that's the point we are going to. And if you've never seen an FF6 speedrun before, it's different, pretty different in a few spots from the regular any percent or any percent glitchless, those sort of runs. And it's a neat run to pick up as a beginner as well. And I'll try to go over all the tech and stuff as the runners are going through it. Should be starting any second here. And we're off. So the first thing the runners will be doing is setting some menu options, lowering the battle speed, mostly for some manipulations later, and setting the cursor to a memory. So that just makes memory easy. Menuing easier going forward because you'll quite often be repeating the same actions in a row in a race. And the first little piece of speed tech we'll be doing here on the first boss is, because Wedge and Vix are completely useless to us for the most part, we're going to try and force all the experience here on Terra by having Wedge and Vix run from every fight. In FF6, the way the running works, there's basically three things. You need your ATB bar to be full, there's an invisible run bar that also slowly fills up. And the game just needs to check every few frames or whatnot to see if you've satisfied both those conditions to get you to run. So if you fill those run bars that you can't see while battle animations are going on, you can get people to run away when those animations are finished, but the person who just took an action doesn't have a full ATB bar, so they can't run. So you can force experience onto single or fewer characters by doing that, and we'll be doing that hopefully throughout the entirety of Narshe here. And we use Terra's Bioblaster typically just because it has a really long animation. It gives Wedge and Vix the time to build their ATB their ATB meters up.
All right, so just to compound on my buddy Zyrak here, so we really need these guys to run away. We're going to be doing a lot of slick manipulation here with experience and stuff like that. So really what we're setting up for is for Terra to be level 6, which will do some experience manipulation and level manipulation for party members that are coming into the group later on, and to make a couple of fights a little bit easier later on, because if you guys don't know already, we are going to be incredibly short-leveled throughout this run. So these guys are going to take these first 3 fights and then move on to the boss here, which is Welcome. You want to go ahead and explain how the quick kill works?
Yeah, sure, absolutely. So one trick we'll be doing a few times throughout the course of the run is when bosses have a counterattack, or any enemy I suppose has a counterattack, if you trigger a counterattack right when the boss is supposed to be taking an action, you can actually cancel out their action. And so we're going to be doing that here on Welk, hopefully at least. If you hit the shell as the shell is getting ready to pull the head back inside, it'll counterattack with Megavolt, but it won't actually retract the head. So you can kill Welk. I think it's about 18 seconds or so quicker than you can otherwise.
Give or take.
Guys from, yeah, exactly. So when you get to guys at this level, 18 seconds is a big deal.
Oh yeah. I mean, I was in the tournament as a lot of us were, and this is one of the first parts that a lot of people struggle with right at the beginning, because there's a lot of things that the Welk can do that would throw the timing off. He could use another attack named Slime. It depends on his ATB. There's a lot of moving parts with this one fight. Honestly, this is probably one of the tougher parts of this particular category to get by, but it looks like they both got through perfectly okay, as expected of these guys of these caliber.
Yeah, absolutely. They're basically dead even right now between the two of them. So
yeah, so now we're just gonna go ahead and go through some regular story, as is all RPGs. We have to go through some story before we move on here. So I hope you guys didn't like Vix and Wedge, because they gotta go. I don't know where they go to. They just vanish. It's weird.
It's just they're just on vacation. They're not dead, or there'd be bodies. They just decided to check out for a while. They're totally fine.
Oh, totally fine. Totally fine. So, what a great game.
I suppose since we're going through some plot, if there's anyone out there who's never actually played through the game before, what we know so far is that there's this thing here, is that Esper, Terra, and her two compatriots coming here for whatever reason, to be able to take it for the Empire. We know that Terra is not really fully aware of her full actions right now, and that's basically it. That's where she's waking up.
Well, here's a slick little thing coming up. So we're gonna go ahead and name our girl Terra, but we're not gonna name her Terra. No. That's incredibly slow, because if you guys notice, we have what is called scrolling letters on the screen. So each letter comes up one at a time. So what we're gonna go ahead and do here is we're gonna reduce her characters by 4 and just name her T. That way we get the maximum speed out of this ridiculous mashing of text here.
Yeah, well, the runners should be doing that for every character we get, except Shadow, because Shadow's name only appears, I think it's 3 times after you get the opportunity to name him, and so reducing his letters actually isn't worth the time it takes to actually physically erase them out.
Yeah, he's not that important anyway. I mean, guy clad in shadows doesn't really know what's going on. He's not important. Don't worry about him. He has like one great use for us, and that's about it. But here we go. Terra's gonna go ahead and get out of here, and it seems like Narshe is a friendly town, but we gotta get out of here, right?
Yeah, Arvis there is buddies with us, but these guys in the headbands don't like us very much. So yeah, we gotta get out of here.
But before we get out of here, we're gonna go ahead and take I believe it's 4 fights before we trigger the next story trigger, so we can get our girl Terra to level 6. This is actually going to be very important, because her being at level 6 means the next party member that joins us will also be her level +1, so our next party member will actually be level 7, which is going to be really, really good for later on.
Right, and it's a compounding sort of effect, that the fact that our next character joins at a higher level will cause the next one to join at a slightly higher level, and so forth, so that the characters that are really important for boss damage and stuff like that are at the levels where we want them going on later.
Yep, so luckily for us, our girl Terra, who has a special trigger, each character actually has a special command that they can use. Right now for Terra, hers is actually magic, which is not something that everyone gets at the beginning of the game. Each person gets their own different special command, but for her, having magic is really good because she could just one-shot these enemies. So we're gonna get here and force an extra encounter. If you notice, these guys are on what we call a step route, so they know exactly when they're gonna get the encounters and typically what encounters they're going to get.
Yeah, and they're not quite so much here, but in some later areas, like in Mount Colts and the Phantom Train and the Veldt, being able to get what encounters it is that you're looking for will not only speed you up, but just make the one a lot safer. And when you're in a race, any additional safety that you can get is really nice.
Oh yeah, so just to go over a little bit of other speed tech going on, what we actually want to see is we want to see a lot of preemptives naturally, but what we don't want to see is enemies attacking us, because when enemies attack us, we lose a little bit of time. But it looks like these guys are, I mean, their luck isn't looking too bad while we go into these extra cutscenes about Terra's past, something about hypnotism, a crown, and I mean, burning metal. Do you know anything about any burning metal?
I don't know. They keep talking about this thing where she fries 50 soldiers or something like that. I mean, we'll be able to see that there's clearly 50 of them here.
Oh yeah.
I mean,
do you see how tall those guys are? Counts as 50, right? Oh man. So, yeah. So we're just gonna go over this Kefka. Fun little fact: Kefka is technically a playable character, even though he's an NPC in that. But they needed to make him a part of your group, as in like a party member, non-recruitable naturally, to put him in the Magic Tech armor, because Magic Tech armor is actually a status effect.
Yeah, and he retains that status as well. Later on, we can talk about that when we come up. That he still has the in-party status later as well, which kind of makes for something a little bit weird in terms of when we decide to menu. And try to remember to bring that up.
Well, I mean,
a little bit.
Well, the run is so jam-packed, I don't know where we're gonna find the time.
I know, right?
But here comes our next character, our good old treasure hunter.
Totally legitimate occupation. It's fine.
Yeah. Good old L. So that's a little thing that can happen too. Sometimes we erase too many characters, and they get a nice rename to A. So all good there. So Locke is he's an interesting character. He fights well, right?
Oh, Locke is just fantastic in combat. There's no better character in existence than Locke, for sure.
Right, he fights well, he tanks well, he does everything well, right?
He does meat shield well. He does do that well.
Oh boy, but in all seriousness, Locke is actually kind of useful because he's so fast, which believe it or not, is actually a good thing for this route, because later on you'll see why we need Locke to be as fast as humanly possible. But here we're gonna come up to this mini game where we're gonna go ahead and play tower defense. I always like to refer to this section as tower defense. If you want to expound on that a little bit.
Yeah, sure. So this is the first multi-party battle that you get in the game. It's something that Final Fantasy VI did that I guess, not that to my knowledge, a lot of other RPGs really did much of this at the time. But the idea is you're supposed to be controlling 3 full party members of characters and be able to take on a large army moving towards you and protect Terra. What we're going to try and do here is we're going to try and skip these battles. These Vol Mammoth guards, you can walk past them without triggering the battle if you walk past them while their leg is in the raised position on the sprite. So we'll take advantage of that to get through them without actually taking on any fights, which is important both for saving time and for keeping on the right encounter packs going forward.
Yep, so as you see, we're already at the Marshal fight here, and what you saw them do was they buffered a run command. This is just for a little bit of safety, because the Marshal can go ahead and use an ability called Net, which will cast Stop on one of our party members, and we actually don't want that, because we need Mog to we need him to move, because despite how these parties are arranged, Mog actually has a couple of pieces of equipment that we can go ahead and borrow off him for later on in the run. We can borrow his Mithril Pike and his Mithril Shield.
Yeah, for sure. Mithril Pike is actually really important for damage later. Mithril Shield is just a nice safety for one of our characters down the line. Uh, After Welk, Marshall is also one of the bigger spots of RNG at the beginning of the run because he has a move which neither runner saw here, thankfully, called Net. And if he decides to use that, that's a real pain, and especially if he decides to Net Mog. It's stop, and it takes forever to wear off.
Yep. Funny note about that Mithril Shield. So I actually went back and I'm starting to learn glitchless myself. Would you believe we actually used that Mithril Shield at the end of the game?
You know what? Yeah, I hadn't thought about it, but now that you mention it, a lot of the shields in the second half of the game are in like chests and dungeons and stuff, so they're not exactly easy to get at. So yeah, I can see that.
Yeah, that kind of just threw me for a loop, but looks like both our guys got through this a-okay, so we're gonna go ahead and get out of Narshe, beat a quick retreat, and head down to Figaro. So once again, these guys are on step route, so if you know they're walking in a very specific way. They're on the overworld. There are tiles that are non-encounter tiles, which means they don't move our threat level up. So we're going to want to walk over quite a few of those in order to manipulate our step route a little bit to reduce the amount of encounters we would get overall in the game. So these guys should be getting 2 encounters on their way to Figaro and then no more.
Right. And by having those step routes set up so they get these particular encounters, they're getting single leafers, which is the easiest thing to run from, and they're especially not getting any encounters in the desert because the desert encounters can be absolutely awful.
Yeah.
Now we've reached the land of cutscenes, as I like to call it, Figaro Castle.
Oh, I was about to say, we didn't get to Doma yet. We're skipping things. But yeah, here we're going to be introduced to our third character, who happens to be he happens to be a king. A really cool king. We like this guy, right?
Yeah, we do, and he's integral to the run going forward. Edgar is one of the bigger damage dealers, so his output will be really important in terms of overall speed and getting through the bosses.
Yep, this is Dr. Edward. He has a master's and a PhD in engineering. We'll get back to that later. Don't worry about it.
Yeah.
So here we're just gonna trigger some more cutscene things. So you wouldn't believe it, but there is actually a lot of movement tech in this game where we want to move up and down ladders quickly, and you could actually lose a lot of time if you're not really paying attention and not moving the most optimal way. So you could actually watch these guys walk through the castle. They're going to be moving pretty precise. Even though it looks super easy, I can assure you sometimes it gets pretty daunting moving as optimally as possible through these maps.
Yeah, Final Fantasy VI's movement, it's not terrible by any means, but it does feel almost a little like your input is a little bit delayed, so you have to sort of anticipate a little bit what you need, when you're going to change direction so that you don't overstep. Which, I mean, it obviously extra steps loses you time no matter where you take them, but you'd much rather have it here rather than where you're trying to stay on step route somewhere. But it is something that, you know, when I first, I guess same as you, when I first started learning this, that I was surprised at how difficult it was to actually just walk correctly, as silly as it sounds.
Well, I mean, it gets really crazy once you get our relic that we'll be picking up, which is the sprint shoes, which is the speedrunning item. But meanwhile, we're going to go ahead and just go through this cutscene and see the king's twin brother, Sabin. We want you to go ahead and stick a pin in that. We'll get back to him later. But yeah, so like walking up and down the stairs, there's actual tech for that later on. Moving around, making sure NPCs don't get in your way. Making sure you don't stop just arbitrarily. It's actually a lot of tech. It was so very surprising. I sat there and said, wow, I'm losing all this time just because I'm not moving optimally.
Right. But that being said, this is actually a really neat speed run to pick up for a beginner. So like if you're always been interested in trying to run an RPG, this is the Kefka Narshe route for Final Fantasy VI is one of those things. It's easy to learn, difficult to master, which is perfect if you're just picking one up for the first time.
Yep. So here comes our boy Kefka. Has a distinguishing feature about him. I don't remember what it is.
You know, I don't know. It's escaping my mind. Oh, right. That's what it is.
Right, his boots. Got you.
Gotcha. Yeah.
So here we're gonna go ahead and talk to these soldiers because we're going through the land of cutscenes right here. We're gonna do some slick manipulation. So if you hold A when you're talking to an NPC, when you're walking up to the NPC, it will talk to that NPC at the first available frame as you walk forward to him. And if you're really slick, LCC got it. It doesn't look like Nitzguy got it, but you notice that on LCC side, the guards are facing each other, while on Nitz's guys, they actually turn back up. Just means you lost a couple frames here and there, but it's something to keep ourselves amused as we go along in the race.
Yeah, good old staring contest meme. I mean, this game doesn't have any other memes, so you might as well go for that one.
No other memes, you say? So Kefka's gonna get out of here, and we're gonna go ahead and take a nap. Terra's gonna get a room in the side castle. I like to refer to it as the side castle over here. It looks like it's his own castle, really. But
yeah, they're towers that they are technically connected, but yeah, no, I hear you.
So we're gonna go ahead and just mosey on along with the story here. So it's just a combination of, oh, we gotta go here, let's talk to this person. We gotta go here, talk to this person. You know, typical JRPG stuff.
Yeah, typical exposition, which for a speed race, we're not really that interested in. But it is a good story if you're playing through the game casually. It's worth listening to.
Yep. So just an abridged version so far. Terra doesn't know what to do. Still has amnesia. They're telling her you should do what you think is right, and she says, "I don't know what's right." So there you go. Story in a nutshell so far. Also, just as a quick reminder, your castle is burning down even though it's made of stone and steel. Remember, that's what happens in the Final Fantasy universe. Everything makes perfect sense.
Everything is flammable.
Yep. Good old times, good old times. So we're gonna go ahead and we're gonna trigger this part of the scene right here, and Edgar's gonna go ahead and put the fires out, right?
Yep, exactly. They just had a whole bunch of water laying around in the desert. They were totally prepared for this. No problem.
Totally prepared. By water, he's going to jump on these chocobos and come back with water and put out the fires, right?
Yep, that's the plan. I mean, if you're in the middle of the desert, clearly getting a whole bunch of water is the best option.
By water, we mean sand, and the castle's going to dive under the sand. It makes perfect sense.
Absolutely. I mean, the physics here are totally fine. It's totally feasible that a castle could bury itself in the desert. I mean, I can't believe that no one's done this.
I mean, listen, I told you he's got a PhD in engineering. It makes perfect sense. All right, you don't question the doctor.
No.
So here we go. We're gonna go ahead and get to this boss fight right here. So going back to Edgar now, he has a special trigger called Tool, and with that he gets a auto crossbow, which does some damage. It does some real nice damage for a beginning game item. So what we're going to do here is we're going to auto crossbow these M-Tech armors down, and it's just going to take 2 auto crossbows to take them out. So easy peasy lemon squeezy.
Yep. You can opt to try and steal a couple of healing items here from with Locke if you want, just purely for safety's sake. It looks like neither runner is gonna do that.
The potions are nice, but you don't really lose any time by stealing if you actually go with Edgar and his terrible ATB first. So
yeah, exactly. But it is purely safety. If everything goes right, you shouldn't need them anyway.
Well, I mean, if you live a charmed life like the LCC,
exactly.
Man, what I would do for just a smidgen of his luck. They're just monsters at this game. If I remember correctly, LCC was the top rated, coming in the top 16, correct? And Nitzguy is 16?
I believe that's correct, yes.
Okay, so yeah, it's going to be a really good race because LCC is the cream of the crop when it comes to this game right now. coming really close to actually setting world record on the Super Nintendo version, no less. Just a casual 124 from him. But Nitzguy is no slouch, and he's hot on his tail. So we're gonna go ahead and go through this cave here, and we're gonna go over to South Figaro. But if you want to cover this cave a little bit.
Yeah, sure. So both runners should be on step route as far as we can tell. So they should get this 5-pack here and 3 more fights, I believe, on the way out. The recovery spring here is a free full heal, full revive. There are some chests in here, but we will be leaving them on purpose. We'll get to that later, but we're not getting anything in here, and we're making our way towards the next part of the story, which is South Figaro.
Yep. So we're also gonna take all these fights because we want to go ahead and we're gonna jimmy up our levels a little bit here for later on. So by the time we get to the next boss, we want to be at Edgar's gonna be at level 10. Locke's going to be at level 9, and Tara's going to be at level 8, so the next party member that joins us will be at level 11.
Yeah, that's right. And we also need the GP out of here as well. We are going to be doing a little bit of shopping in the next town. You'll see why that's important very shortly.
Yep, but going back over to the world map here, you're going to see them make a little funny walk down to South Figaro, which is It's confusing the first time you do it if you don't actually see the map with it. I was confused when I did it. Yeah,
for sure. But it's the same thing that you mentioned on the leaving Narshe. There are actually a fair amount of non-threat generating tiles here. So taking this little back and forth walk here just allows you to step over as many of them as possible.
Yep, I believe the number is 7 for that area right there. Opposed to if you just walked over, it would actually just be 6. So we're gonna go ahead and buy.
That sounds right.
We're gonna buy some sprint shoes here, which is gonna let us move on to in town maps and dungeon maps twice as fast, and we're gonna go ahead and move everyone to the back row.
Yeah, so you can see here with LCC just how much quicker you get to move with the sprint shoes on. So why they're absolutely integral for this. There is another strat you can do here too, where you pick up one of the star pendants as well. Star pendants prevent poison and will actually remove it if you equip one on somebody who has it. Again, purely a safety. There are a few enemies that can poison you, and it can be kind of annoying depending on when it happens. But it looks like both these guys are just going to go straight with straight sprint shoes.
Ha! Safe push shot.
Exactly.
So,
no time to go safe. Got to go fast.
Right. So, fun little note about moving into the back row as well. When you're in the front row, you deal more physical damage on your regular attacks, but when you're in the back row, you deal less physical damage, even though you take less physical damage. So we're going to move everyone into the back row, and then with the damage that the auto crossbow deals, it deals the same amount of damage whether you're in the front row or the back row. But we're not quite strong enough to knock these guys out just yet, so we're going to pick up this Atlas armlet, which is going to increase our strength, which is going to let Edgar be super strong to take down a lot of packs that we're going to want to fight later on. So
yeah, Terra's fire spell also not affected by whichever row that you're in. So just being able just to save the damage from being in the front is definitely helpful.
Yep. So here comes LCC to one of the fights that we actually want to take here, which is the Tusker and the I like to refer to them as the red boards. So.
Red board is good. Yep.
So.
And perfect. So we can see the run manipulation that was going on in Narshe there again to get Locke to run away. Locke needs a lot less experience to reach his level than the other two characters do right now. So having Locke take off from one of those fights allows you to get the levels 10, 9, 8 that you mentioned a lot quicker.
Yep. So there's only a few fights here that we're actually going to want to take. We're going to have 3 packs of 4 enemies that we're going to want to fight. And LCC with I don't even know how to explain this luck that he's getting right now. This is his 4th side attack or preemptive that he's gotten so far.
I mean, this is just average LCC luck though, isn't it? I mean, really?
Sure. So we're just going to go ahead and fight another preemptive. Holy smokes. Oh boy. So we're gonna go ahead and run from this because we actually have a couple of encounters that we're gonna be able to just run away from because we're gonna hit our levels a little earlier. You know what? I'm just gonna keep quiet.
This is pretty nuts.
This is borderline silly at this point. Oh man, no commentators curse here, but so we're gonna fight that, and then we're gonna fight these little plant dudes. They're trilliums, and one auto crossbow will take them out. But what we don't want to see out of them is Bane Touch because that will poison us, and poison's no bueno at all.
Yeah, it at the very least, it's going to cost you extra menuing to be able to go in and remove it. And if you can't remove it, which can theoretically happen later, then it just saps a ton of your health, and you have to menu continuously. So poison really is awful, and that's the bonus to the Star Pendant strat that I mentioned earlier. The downside, if you choose to do that, is that generally you have to menu a little bit more to move your sprint shoes around.
Oh, I just realized this. LCC has the 3 character letters as EAT. Good times. So
yeah, and looks like LCC is going to get his last fight here. Should get his last levels. Perfect.
Yep. So now we're going to go ahead and start up this Vargas fight right here. So I hope everyone has their Apple products here because we're going to be fighting some nice Ipoos.
Yeah, Apple approved bears.
So this fight is actually kind of interesting. So there's a little bit of tech that we can do here. So what we want to do is we want to cast fire and auto crossbow. But while we had a chance in some of the fights earlier on, we took that Mithril pike that we took from Mog and equipped it to Egger, and then we equipped the Mithril sword that was on Egger and equipped it on Locke. So what we're going to do here is we're going to swap his row, and then he's just going to physically attack, while Terra casts fire and Egger casts auto crossbow. Interesting fact with this is we actually kind of want to manipulate his ATB a little bit to get a skip later on in the fight. If we get it, it's cool. If not, then it's not a real big time loss, but it's just one of those small optimization that makes these guys top runners.
Yeah, absolutely. So coming up here in this next phase, Vargas will try to use a skill called Doomfist, and there's some dialogue that occurs before he uses it, and that's what can theoretically slow the fight down. So you want to try to manipulate Vargas based on where you are in his attack cycle, so that he either Doomfists as soon as possible, so that so that by the time you've inputted Sabin's Blitz, that it's gone and it doesn't cost you anything, or you want to delay it so that you can get this pummel off before Doomfist ever comes out.
Yeah, it looks like LCC got a little bit of bad luck with the Vargas ATB, but got the pummel off A-OK. Just don't be like me and mess up your Street Fighter inputs.
Yeah, that's I think that was the intent. Weirdly enough, is that Sabin's Blitz is a fairly common fighting game button combinations to be able to use them, and I think that he was supposed to be a throwback to fighting games as well. Final Fantasy, of course, also was originally supposed to be called Fighting Fantasy, but that name was already taken, so they had to change it.
Aha, we learned something today. But yeah, going over Sabin's special technique. So he has what we call Blitz, and you put in special commands and you get special moves. So in this case, we want pummel, which is left, right, left, and A. But just a little note, if you actually go from fight to Blitz too fast and press A, it will actually, once you get into the Blitz commands, will register that down and up or up as your first command, and then pretty much just make you fail the Blitz 9 out of 10 times. I can't think of any Blitzes that actually start with down or up.
I believe Airblade starts with up.
Oh, okay. So.
But nothing you'll see in the run, yeah.
So, yeah, we're gonna get through this part A-OK, and then we're gonna, story-wise, we're still trying to get over to the Returner's hideout to talk to our favorite old man, Bannon. Can you tell my enthusiasm about Bannon?
It sounds like you're a really big fan of his, yeah.
just as a side note, as a more interesting spot. So this little NPC character that's in the bottom right, we want him to stay down there because he could actually cause the game to soft lock, coincidentally.
Yeah, basically what he can do is he can sort of walk up in between Edgar and that NPC on the stairs, and you can just get him stuck there, and then Edgar doesn't know what to do anymore, and you soft lock. If you talk to the returner as fast as possible, like hold down A, so you talk to him as fast as possible and mash to get through the text, I believe it's impossible for him to walk far enough to get in your way. But if you don't do that, you are inviting the Reaper, that's for sure.
Yeah, I got that once, and I said, well, this is a thing.
I don't think I've ever gotten it, but I've had him real close. Like, I've had him, like, walk into Edgar's side as I'm walking up the stairs a couple of times.
Yeah, so after speaking to Old Man Ben in here, something about a box and virtues and stuff like that, we're going to talk to our party members. But before we move on with the story, we're going to want to ransack the Returner's hideout for a couple of items. We're going to pick up a pair of Phoenix Downs. I believe these guys are going to be picking up the Antidote as well. True Knight Relic, Genji Glove, and there was one more. What is it? Air Lancet.
The Air Lancet.
Yep.
Yeah. And all of those things, I mean, the Antidote is a safety, but literally everything else has its use in this run. It is something that you actually will need to for fights and tricks later, so we'll be sure to go over that as they come up.
Oh, baby, look at that NPC on Nitz's side. What a jerk.
Wow.
So... yeah, so little known fact, we're going to go out and talk to Ben, and he's going to ask us something about being Hope or something of that nature, but we're going to tell him no. So just remember, kids, if you say no to Ben in 3 times, you get the Genji Glove instead of getting the Gauntlet, and you actually skip the cutscene on the inside as well, which is pretty neat.
Yeah, you get a much shorter version of the cutscene doing it this way, as well as the Genji Glove actually being really useful as opposed to completely useless like the Gauntlet is.
Yep. So if the Genji Glove lets us equip 2 weapons, which sounds fine and dandy, right? There should be some kind of setback to it, but unfortunately they didn't really program in the setback, which is weird. Opposed to the Gauntlet, which lets you hold one weapon with 2 hands, and it's supposed to increase your damage, but it doesn't. So we want the Genji Glove. Yeah,
for sure. We would assume their intent was to have the weapons do like half damage or 75% damage or something, but yeah, that they definitely did not bother ever programming that in. So,
thank you, base SquareSoft. You made speedrunning possible by being bad program. No, this game is perfectly programmed in every way. Don't let anyone lie to you. There are no glitches. Everything works as intended.
Yep, absolutely. There's definitely not a problem with physical evade. Totally working as intended.
Oh, absolutely. But meanwhile, we're gonna go ahead and set up what we like to dub the river manipulation here. So before that, we're gonna do some menuing. We'll see what he wants to do here. But what we're doing is we're gonna go ahead and do our menuing and then make a save and then reset. Then we're going to go to the save menu and reset one more time and then wait for this NPC that's in the room with us to get to a certain position. All of this sounds like it would waste a lot of time, but it's actually faster because we're actually determining how many encounters we're going to get on the river, which the grand total should be 2.
Exactly. So the encounters on the Elite River actually aren't based on the threat table or anything like they are generally in the overworld. They're based on your NPC movement value, which is essentially a value that controls how the NPCs randomly wander around. So by setting our seed and doing these resets, we can guarantee that the NPC movement value increases to a certain amount. And then by walking out right there, we actually get what the best encounter set we can get on the river.
Yep, so the 2 fights that we get are mandatory fights. You would get them either way. So we're going to go ahead and run from this first one. I believe LCC does the new strats for Kefka and Narshe. He's going to run from this one?
Yeah, so I guess from my understanding is that a lot of people used to force everybody but Edgar to run away from this double pterodon fight. Actually, it looks like LCC is going to take it.
Okay, that's fine as well. So there's a couple of strats you can use here. I personally use the run from the Petrodon fight and not take the level 11 on Edgar, which makes it a little bit more risky later on, but LCC knows what he's doing. just the #1 seed in this tournament. I'm not going to question him.
Yeah, absolutely. I think this was adapted originally because I think for the general any percent or any percent glitchless or whatever category, I think Edgar getting level 11 here is actually very important for later on in the game. It's a little less important because we're only going to Kefka here.
Yep. So, but getting the level 11 will make a couple of fights later on a little bit more manageable. Less dangerous, more than manageable actually. But here we're gonna go ahead and I believe we take the menu and switch the role for Edgar because he has the Genji glove on, and instead of using auto crossbow for the upcoming fights, he has 2 weapons on, so he's just gonna fight him out.
Yeah, Edgar will be doing more single target damage that way. He still has the Atlas armlet, so that's further increasing his damage with the individual weapons as well. So that Sabin is already a really strong single target damage character with his blitzes, and now with this setup, Edgar is also really powerful as well.
Yep. So here we come up to the Ultros fight. This fight is pretty trivial because if you do this fight in a very specific way, it will be the same every time you do it. And just to answer Finger Boom in the chat right now, skipping the Genji glove in Riot Blade is, as far as I know, not a thing. I believe that was like the old strat that we would do, but not as far as I know. So yeah, you see here, LCC is going to go ahead and cast fire. So the same trick that we used on Whelp, where we're waiting for his ATB bar to come up, and then we cast a spell that will trigger a counterattack, which will overwrite the enemy AI. So he only gets 1 turn instead of 2 turns. So he would get a counterattack and a regular attack. He just gets a counterattack instead, and then we can go ahead and beat him up, and that should be the only attack he gets this entire fight.
Yeah, that's right.
So, LCC's on some nice pace right now.
Yeah, he got some really nice damage rolls there. The terrorist attack was what put him down. You don't see that very often.
Yeah. So I believe, I don't remember how much life he has. I think it's like, I want to say 1600, but I don't have my notes on me for that right now. But usually it's not Terra's attack that will get him. It's really close actually when you actually do this fight the way that the LCC did. So he must have got a really good set of damage rolls to actually just knock him out with Terra. So here we are with the scenario selection scene. So we're gonna go ahead and start with the Sabin scenario.
Yeah, the main reason we start with Sabin is because we get smoke bombs at the end of this scenario, which will help the members in the other 2 scenarios run away.
Yep. So, and it's also the longest, wonderful, greatest scenario. So here's our buddy Shadow. Here we're gonna pick him up for. Oh, actually, LCC is gonna go ahead and just get rid of his name right here. He might be in glitchless mode right now.
Yeah, very possible. LCC, very, very accomplished Final Fantasy VI runner, runs basically every category. So yeah, he probably just keeps the route to the same to save his own sanity.
I don't blame him. So yeah, we're gonna go ahead and pick up Shadow here. Shadow, as you see here, can be kind of annoying with some of the things that he does, but this is primarily for safety because this next area that we're gonna come up with, going in there with just Sabin can be very, very hazardous. And we want to actually borrow, I'm going to put this in air quotes, we're going to borrow Shadow's equipment for another part of the game.
Yeah, Shadow basically has, maybe 3 purposes: getting his equipment stolen, throwing 1 air lancet, and then soaking as much damage as he can take. This is basically why we get him.
Hold on, he has one more purpose. He can throw a Dirk too if he needs to in this run.
Oh, right, sorry, that's right.
Otherwise, Shadow isn't really a used character in this run. In the 100% run, which is the all Espers run, I believe he gets a little bit more screen time, but otherwise you don't really use Shadow too much for his abilities or anything like that. He's actually pretty fast though, so which is a nice thing.
Silver Fox, it's very, very similar. There are tricks that are a little bit different. There's one in particular that we'll talk about that you don't do, but it's extremely similar to the full game run, yes. So moving on to, I guess, Scratch's land of cutscenes here, Doma Castle. So
sorry about
you see
that.
our
just doing a quick fix right here. But yes, Doma Castle, my favorite mustache man, samurai, mustache man samurai. So yeah, so this part, the Imperial camp is just a long set of cutscenes and then fights and then cutscenes. Do something, fight. Do something else, fight. Story, fight. Story, fight. So it's it can be interesting though because some of the tech that you have to do, like what you see LCC doing here right now, switching the battle speed to 1 and sprint shoes, putting the sprint shoes on Cyan. So battle speed to 1. I don't think we actually went over what the battle speed actually does.
Yeah, so the battle speed affects how quickly the enemies get their turns, essentially. We typically keep it slow, mostly to set up those manipulations, those counterattack cancels and stuff like that. But for this particular fight, the quickest way to get through it is actually just to have Cyan use that retort ability, and for that, Cyan needs to get hit. So we turn the battle speed up for this fight so that Cyan takes that shot to the face as quickly as possible.
Right. Just to answer Silver Fox Flame's question in the chat, the question is the route for the Kefka at Narshe the same opening route to any of the full game runs, or more or less things picked up? There's a lot of similarities to a couple of the runs that you can do. There's some things that you do in the glitchless run that you don't do in Kefka at Narshe, and there's some things that Kefka at Narshe you're not allowed to do in the glitchless run. Yeah, this is a basic run of the opening of the game, I guess would be the best way of explaining it. So, what the categories we have are any percent, sketch, glitchless, 100%, which is all espers, and is there anything else I'm missing?
I think those are the major official categories, I believe. Yeah.
Okay, so. But yeah, there's pretty much, if there's any differences as far as I know, and I think Takaze can probably Takaze or one of the other runners can actually correct me if I'm wrong. It's pretty similar to most of them. But here we are in the Imperial camp again, and as you see, we have NPC Kefka here. So he's still in this form anyway. He's technically part of our party. This was the only way we could get him into the Magic Tech armor, and as you see here, we haven't switched back the battle speed yet, because this Kefka actually has our party's battle speed. So changing the battle speed back to 6 immediately won't actually affect him. But luckily, all we have to do is just smack him once and he runs away.
Yeah, exactly, and so that allows us to do all our menuing in one shot, just coming up right here, and we don't have to worry about it affecting the Kefka getting extra turns or anything.
Yep, and you see here we went ahead and removed the ninja gear off Shadow and equipped it on Save, and this I believe it increases his speed a little bit and provides a little bit more armor. So here we are on the Templar fight. What we're going to want to do here is we're going to want to smack the grunts with a regular attack and then pummel and throw the air lance in at the other ones, make this fight really quick. What we don't want to see is counterattacks like axe and stuff like that, but it's not too much of a big deal, just a little bit of a time loss.
Yeah, all these death counters between these Templars and the death wrenches all the way back at the beginning of the game. If I ever make a metal band, Death Wrench is going to be the name.
I would go and see it. But what time? It's a certain time. It might be a Kool-Aid time. Kool-Aid time. Oh yeah.
Doma forgetting to pick up their Sunny D, so they are all stuck drinking the purple stuff.
Hey, listen, I always wanted the purple stuff in those commercials. Sunny D never tasted good to me. But in this case, you should never drink the purple stuff out of river, because it's full of poison. Full of poison.
Yeah, the people of Doma, unfortunately, are incredibly allergic to the purple stuff, so they also just start falling over here.
They should have. You know what? They were using Splenda. They should have used natural sugar. That's the problem. That'll teach those Doma guys to use Splenda. But we're just gonna go ahead and trigger a couple extra cutscenes right here. As you see in the LCC screen, funny story about the stairs is when you do a screen transition in this and on stairs, you actually come out on the other side of the stairs going slower. But if you hold up or down while you're on the stairs and then move switch back to moving down the stairs, you will actually go down full speed, going down the stairs at full speed, which is a fun little movement optimization there. So, also the king is dead. Just a lesser note here, the king is dead.
Yeah, I mean, that's too bad. And then this Doma sentry here, he's going to go on vacation with Wedge and Vix.
Vacation, right? They're on vacation.
Yeah.
I completely forgot they're on vacation.
Yeah, they're just chilling somewhere. He's just going to hang out. It's fine.
I would like to think that they're at the Golden Saucer.
Oh, there we go.
Yep. So, unfortunately, the Cyan's wife and kid is also taking a little bit of a nap. They're very allergic to Splenda here, so can't let that stand. Feeding Cyan's kid the wrong type of things, going over to her friend's house and finding out the kid was eating meat when he's a vegetarian. So we're gonna go ahead and go into these fights here. Nothing big here. The only thing that we could do to speed up these fights is hope and pray that Cyan actually just does basic attacks and instead of using his sword tech dispatch, which takes up a little bit of extra time here. But
yeah, dispatch's animation is super long. It feels like it takes forever, and you just one-shot everything with your normal attacks anyway. So you can also get lucky and have Cyan. Cyan actually will counterattack as if he has the black belt equipped, even though he doesn't actually. So if you get lucky and Cyan takes some of the hits, you can get an extra fight off that way.
Yep. Here's another question. But if two guys are doing the same exact route method, doesn't RNG pretty much decide it? Actually, as the route may be the same, but a lot of movement tech, how you perform. So, like, as funny as it sounds, Mega Man includes a lot of execution, so to speak. But so does this game, because being able to move correctly, being able to menu correctly, remembering what you need to do, hoping that you get good RNG, all of it is actually a good part of RPG like Final Fantasy VI. Just like in Mega Man 2, in Rockman 2, you're actually hoping for good RNG out of the bosses. We hope for good RNG here as well, but a lot of movement is actually important as well.
Right, and the RNG is what makes the racing fun, having to deal with whatever situation the game decides to throw at you that time. It gets pretty old pretty quick if you're playing some game where the RNG is either non-existent or extremely minimal.
Yep, I really can't even think of a game that has non-existent RNG except maybe like Mario 64, but even then there's very minor parts of RNG in that, if I'm correct. But
yeah, exactly. It's basically just kind of stuff like certain puzzle games and stuff like that. But I mean, RNG is going to be a factor in just about any game in any race.
Yeah, short of completely manipulating a game like I believe it was Dragon Quest that was just recently completely RNG manipulated. At
yeah, there's a few games. Yeah.
So yeah, it's really how you respond to the situations given to you that I mean, that's not to say that RNG can't completely screw you, but I mean it's a race. Things happen. So what you're going to see here while we do these Magic Tech fights, we're going to go ahead and just fire beam everything, which is nice and neat, but while in between all of that, we're going to go ahead and do some inventory management while we're at it as well. Move a couple of things around, put stuff that we don't need down, and put the stuff that we would like to use up. So like the Phoenix down and the potions we want to keep at the top, but the Dirk we don't really need anymore, and same with the auto crossbow.
Yeah, exactly. And also opening up some empty spaces for some of the stuff that we're getting later will fall into slots that are more favorable as well.
Yep. So, looking at both of these guys, they're on a very nice brisk pace right now. I'm pretty sure they're beating my PB by a good like 3 minutes right now.
They are on pretty blistering pace. Anything sub hour on after the boss up here, you're on a pretty good run.
Yep. Ideally, we want to get to the Phantom Train. I believe is sub 55 when we start that cutscene. For that will indicate that you're at a really good time right now. And then sub hour Phantom Train is just phenomenal. I remember when I first got one, I was so very happy, and then I realized these guys get it consistently, and I got kind of depressed.
I think I timed my split on that a little bit differently, so I don't think I've managed to pick up a sub-hour train just yet because of that. But
so here we are in the Phantom Forest here. Nothing really too hazardous here. We just don't want to see any pincer attacks. The ghosts are not very nice. They cast fire and take up a lot of time, and just generally not nice people to us. But here,
also.
Oh no, sorry. Go ahead.
Sorry, I was going to say they also actually know stop as well, which they will tend to use on you a lot more often if they have to get that pincer off. That's one of the things that can make that 3 ghost pincer incredibly brutal.
I didn't know that, and now that you mention it, the next time I'm going to do one of these runs, I'm going to find it, and I'm going to be so very angry.
Yeah. I think I was watching Netara when she was racing Essentia, and she just got nailed with stop by like every enemy in the game in the run that used it. It was absolutely brutal.
Yeah. But going on with the Phantom Train here, what we have here is just the wholehearted. This is not even a joke. This is why one of the reasons why we do step route manipulation, because this place is terrifying without it.
Yeah, it really is. Some of the encounter packs in here can really hurt. They can be really slow as well. So being on step route to get the best set of encounters that you can in here can save you a ton of time. This place and the Leet River and the Veld are the 3 spots where being on this step route can just really, really, really make the run not only a lot quicker but a lot safer.
Yep. So a couple of things in here that are pretty bad. Those ghosts naturally are pretty bad. We don't want to see a pincer from them. You also saw LCC kind of waste a couple of steps inside the train. He wants to get an encounter inside instead of out, because we can get a really nasty bomb encounter outside the train. The bomb
There's
encounter...
also the...
Scary.
Yeah, there's also the 4 Whisper pack as well, where they can all use Demi on you, which will take away half your health, and the animation on it is super slow. Like, there's just a lot of encounters you just don't want.
Yep. So another question in the chat here: are they going to suplex the train? Honestly, we do not know. They did not come up with any agreement before the race, so we'll just have to wait and see if they want to validate their run here. So. Also, Sabin never skips leg day. That is why he can carry 2 grown men and jump over train cars.
He just puts one in each pocket and takes off. It's fine. Or maybe he's got that thing from Tales of Symphonia or whatever that just shrinks them down to minuscule size. It's whatever.
Nice. So a little more movement tech in here, a little bit of RNG. These NPCs, because we're on step route, can just get in our way, and we can't do anything about them because we can't step around them, unfortunately. So we just have to hope that they don't stay in our way too long, so we can just move forward. So, yep. So here's a bomb. We're hoping he doesn't have good ATB to cast Blaze, which will pretty much one-shot any one of our party members if he single casts it. And we're gonna duck in here and pick up a pair of earrings. So, yeah. Do you know why we pick up the earrings?
Yeah, the earrings, because Sabin's Aura Bolt attack actually counts as magic damage, so giving the earrings to Sabin actually increases your Aura Bolt damage.
Big muscle guy uses magic. Sounds great.
Yeah, that was one of the things when I read it when I first learned about FF6 tech is I had a strategy guide for this game, but I was a kid, and one of the things that it talked about was properly equipping your relics, and the example it gave was you wouldn't give somebody like Sabin something that increases your magic power like earrings. Like,
Yeah,
not actually how it works.
yeah. So funny story. It's not just Aura Bolt. It actually increases a majority of his blitzes. I believe it's only Pummel and Suplex that are physical attacks. Everything else is magic attacks. So his best blitz that he has, which is Bum Rush, is a magic attack, and it doesn't look like we're gonna. Oh, here comes an Evil Toot on the LCC side, but Phantom Train is an interesting fight. We can suplex it, which doesn't look like the LCC is gonna opt to do, but he is an undead creature, and as in standard tradition, restorative items actually hurt the undead, so all we have to do to kill the Phantom Train is just throw a Phoenix down on it, and down he goes.
Right. And just, especially when the train decides to Evil Toot, suplexing can be a little bit dangerous. Like if Sabin decides to gets muddled or something, or then you start getting into danger areas. So if you start with really bad ATB and you get an Evil Toot, you probably shouldn't, for as much as we all love it.
But, yeah. Or you could just get lucky and get the Self-Plex. I mean, I love the Self-Plex.
I have not gotten the Self-Plex yet. I have gotten Berserker Sabin suplex a few times.
Ooh, nice. But LCC on some really great pace. He actually had sub 59 Phantom Train, which is just out of this world right now. He is. Ooh.
Yeah, LCC is absolutely flying, and Nitz is not. Ooh, that Blaze though. That Blaze is going to make this Phantom Train fight interesting. Probably not going to see a suplex on his hand now either.
I didn't get to see it. Did it actually hit Sabin?
It killed Shadow Science at 4 health, I believe.
Oof, yeah, no. For safety reasons, he probably won't. But back on LCC side, he's going through the cutscene here, and you know, Phantom Train does his job, take people to the other world. So, oh no.
Oh boy. Oh man.
Quickly. Okay, he got it. He got it off. Oh, okay. Fantastic.
Wow. Whoa, man.
Oh baby. What a fight.
So Sabin punching himself in the face multiple times to wake himself up and gets the Phoenix down off.
Oh, lucky. So, we'll talk about that in a second. Back on LCC side, he's going to go ahead and do some setup for the next boss fight here, because we have a little bit of time during the morning scene here, because Science family decided to jump on the train because they drank the Kool-Aid. So, yeah, so we went ahead and equipped that earrings that we picked up, and now we're going to use the True Knight, and then we had unequipped Cyan from earlier to do just a wonderful little, don't want to call it a glitch, an enhancement to fight Rezopos, which is the next boss coming up.
Yeah, so it's a variation on a trick that's been known for a long time called Psycho Cyan, where if you revive Cyan in a fight, his retort usability gets all messed up, and he'll use it on any physical attack, not just the ones that hit him in the face. And the other interesting thing that we combine that with is that if you hit an enemy with a physical and a magical attack on the same round, the enemy AI gets all messed up and will do some crazy things. And in particular, on this fight, it will cause these piranhas to stop calling additional ones and just end the fight. So that's what we're looking at doing here.
Yep. So, fun little note: the suplex will never hit the piranha, or at least I've never seen it hit the piranha. Maybe in other fights it can, but it'll never hit the piranha. This is how we actually are able to manipulate a physical and a magical attack to hit the piranha. And,
yeah, I believe the piranhas count as flying, so they can't be hit by it. I believe. I could be wrong, but
okay. So, other fun little thing about this is that this is why we pick up the True Knight, because we're gonna have Cyan in critical health, and sometimes the fish can just decide to, the piranha can actually just decide to hit Cyan and just kill him again, which is no good. So we pick up the True Knight, which lets the wearer cover. They will cover a critical HP party member, regardless if they're in critical the wearer is in critical HP or not. So.
And I guess, and I did notice actually too when LCC did that in the middle of the train. I'm assuming he does it there, yeah, just in case Cyan is dead. That way you can make sure you get the equipment off before he dies. That makes sense.
Yeah, that makes quite a bit of sense actually, because Cyan is very prone to dying on the Phantom train, as anyone who's run this category knows. So. Here we go. LCC actually had the potions all queued up now, so he's just going to cure up his party and walk through the Veld.
And yeah, so looks like LCC no problem staying on step route for him. He's going to get himself some optimal Veld encounters here. You're going to get one pincer attack coming up on this next fight, but other than this, you should get no unrunnables, and as long as you don't get bad RNG with the pincer, you should be pretty golden. As long as Gao decides he wants to play nice.
Yep. So this is one of the major reasons that we want to stay on step route. So when you get to the Veld, you actually only encounter enemy packs that you have seen in the game. So if you remember, we saw the brawlers on Mount Colts, and we saw the Lobo and these soldiers back in Narshe, and then this next one, I believe it's, I forget his name, the Beacor is what it's called. Yeah.
Yeah.
We saw one of him on the way to Doma. So we only run into encounters that we ran into before, which is pretty nice. So we're just gonna run up to Moblitz real quick, sell a couple. You could sell here or sell somewhere else. Yeah, he's gonna sell the black belt here and buy the dried meat, which is for Ga to show up, which is our next story trigger. So fun thing about Ga, there's a couple of encounters that he doesn't show up in. He does not show up if one of your party members is dead. He does not show up on a back attack or a pincer attack. And on eligible fights that he shows up on, he only shows up 5 out of 8. Or in LCC's case, first time every time.
First time every time, yeah.
So, yeah, so there's quite a few conditions to get Ga. We have, in our route, 2 chances to get him, so statistically we should be getting him. But, if you guys have been watching this tournament enough, you know sometimes God just doesn't want to play nice.
Yeah, I know. It's Gao RNG, unfortunately, is one of those things that can decide a race if he decides to be especially shy with one of the runners. So hopefully that's not really a determining factor, and Nitz gets Gao on his first couple of tries here as well.
Yep. So, got Ga first try. Fun little fact, instead of mashing through cutscenes that are in battles, we can actually just hold A, which is a nice little reprieve for our runners here, because this is a very long cutscene. Something about shiny and doing stuff and blah 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 blah.
For the Serpent Trench coming up, it's generally pretty okay, except that the very first fight can be a single Anguiform. The Serpent Trench has a couple of the enemies have very powerful attacks that they can use when they're the only enemy left on the screen. So if you get that single Anguiform, he can choose to Aqua Reiku, which will almost completely wipe you if you get hit with it. So you really don't want to see that. There are a few opportunities for pincers as well. But other than that, it can actually be fortunate if Cyan actually goes down really quickly, because Cyan is way slower at running than the other 2 characters are. So if Cyan actually takes a dive early on in the trench, that can actually help you run away from the other fights faster.
Yep, and for everyone in the chat, I would like to see everyone get their Kappas out. All hail the Kappas. So, yeah, the Serpent Trench is not a nice place. A lot of bad things can happen to you. The single Anguiform. Some of the enemies can cast slow. Some of them can cast stop. I believe the angle forms are actually harder to run away from, which I don't know the actual specifics on that, but yeah,
Yeah.
this is just an overall dangerous place. If runners actually took a save, this would actually be one of the places to take that save. But LCC is very confident in getting through here, so. And it looks like Nitzguy got the Gao fight on the second one. Lucky for him, it was just a single bomb. So both those fights with that Gao would show up on is a single ghost and then a single bomb. Anything after that is just horrible.
Yeah, because I think is the Volmammoth fight, is that the next one, or is that?
Yes, it's the third one, and then the fourth one is
Yeah.
a single shadow, I believe.
So yeah, the Volmammoth fight is definitely slow. You definitely don't want to have to get through that one.
Yep, and that's another one of those fights that has a flag on the Volmammoth that you can't flee from the fight, so you're actually forced just to fight it. It's not nice at all. So LCC is going to come up to the Serpent Trench while Nitzguy is going to go ahead and finish up his Gao scene here.
So there'll be 4 encounters on the trench with the route. The runners will be taking their force at specific times. There's nothing you need to do to control or manipulate them at all.
Yep. So Serpent Trench is kind of interesting for one other thing. There's 2 little forks in the road. You could go left or right. We're gonna want to go right at the first one and then left at the second one. If we go right, it takes us to a cave. If we go left, it gives us an extra encounter. We go right on the first one because the cave is so short, but on the second one, the cave is very, very, very long, so we don't want to do that. Side attack for LCC, no, not surprising at this point.
Yeah. Not only do we not get the single angle form, get the side attack on the 3 Actinions. Yeah, crazy.
So if we want preemptives, we actually want them here. Well, there you go. There's the pincer attack. There's the bounce back.
There we go. Yeah.
So, unfortunately, this fight can be kind of annoying because what happens here is we have party members that can't really control what they do with their special ability. Gao actually, when he uses his Rage RT, goes into a berserk state. Sabin can't control where his blitzes go, and Cyan can't control where his sword tech goes. So we kind of just have to kill the guy on the right and hope to run away as soon as humanly possible before one of those guys decides to stop us.
Right, and the other danger is that if you decide to go sword techs with the blitzes, is that they could decide to kill one of the other enemies as well, and then you could be looking at a Gigavolt or an Aqua Rake, which is just awful.
Yep. So here's an example of why Cyan is awful, and he should be taking a dirt nap during this section.
So yeah, you can see how much longer it takes for Cyan's invisible run bar to build up as opposed to the other 2 characters, and that's generally made worse in the trench because of the hard to run from flag on these Angloforms here.
Yep. So luckily for us though, with this double Angloform fight, they don't use Aqua Rake unless they're by themselves, which is pretty fortunate for us. Could you imagine if they actually used double Aqua Rake right there?
Yeah, I mean that would be interesting if they did. Actually, you'd almost be at a point where you'd either just be completely rolling the dice, or you'd actually have to come up with a safety route where you actually leveled enough to be able to take that. That'd be interesting if they did, but thankfully they don't.
Yep. So here we are in Nikia, where we finally get our prize, which is going to be these smoke bombs for later on in the game. We're going to be using all of them actually in this case because he bought 15, and we're gonna buy this Mithril Pike, which is pretty much exclusive to this route here. So we're gonna use that Mithril Pike in conjunction with the Genji Glove later on for the fight with Kefka. In the regular categories, we wouldn't really need to use the Mithril Pike because we actually pick up a Rune Edge. So here's the single Angloform fight on the Nitzguy side.
Yeah, and he's opting just to use Orbital to kill it rather than risking taking the Aqua Rake while running away.
Yep. So, yeah. So we opt to use the Mithril Pike instead of the double or the Rune Edge to just speed through here. So here we are in lock scenario. So what we need to do here is we're going to steal some clothes, we're going to steal some cider, we're going to pick up this general that someone talks about and stuff like that, right?
Yeah, no, that's, you know, definitely all on the table for sure, all gonna happen. I mean,
hey, what you do? Well, that guard was never there, so we're just gonna get out of here, right?
So yeah, so you can just clip through moving NPCs. You open and close the menu and move through them at the right time. And so that allows us to just completely skip a humongous portion of lock scenario and just get on out of here. And this, if you do this, has long-lasting effects throughout the game. There's definitely not going to be a lady trapped in a basement forever because of this. That's definitely not a side effect of this.
Absolutely. So, as you see here, Locke is by himself and things can get kind of scary. So we're going to go ahead and smoke bomb and get out of these fights. I also noticed that LCC did not set Locke down to the second position here, which can be kind of scary.
I believe he did.
Oh, he did. Okay.
Yeah.
Okay, so it's actually the... Okay, I got fooled by the... where his position, his life position is on the bar.
Right.
But, so we moved him down to the second position very nicely. We moved him down there because in this fight right here with the bear and this little crab, if this ends up being a pincer attack, our back would be to the bear, and the bear would do an excessive amount of damage to Locke because Locke is not the tank of the party, and that could just wipe us. So as you see here, LCC is also opting to pick up one of the treasure chests from the cave as well. He's going to pick up a thunder rod, which is just rods are just a wonderful broken item in this game.
Yeah, rods, they function similarly to the rods of Fantasy 5. If you use them, they use the second level version of whatever their elemental spell is. They also completely ignore magic defense for some reason. So this Thunder Rod is going to just completely annihilate Tunnel Armor here.
Yeah. Who said Locke wasn't a damage dealer? Did you see that? That was almost 1,500 damage.
I mean, unless you do it with Mirager, then, you know, cheating.
Believe it or not, I've actually gotten that once.
Yeah.
So we're done with Locke's scenario, and we're just going to go ahead and move on to the last scenario here, which is the Terra scenario. So a lot of the same thing. We're going to be running from all the battles, and we're just going to move on with the story here. Meanwhile, on Nitz's side, he's going to go ahead and finish up Locke's scenario. Oh, we completely forgot to mention one of the more important parts about Bannon. Why Bannon's awful.
Yeah, right. Go ahead.
Oh,
why is he awful?
Well, see that you're gonna let me say it. Couple things about Bannon that's awful. 1, 120 life. 2, he only has a special command called health. Whoop the flippin' do. Number 3, if he dies, we get a game over. Just game over. Our party is wiped. We can't let Bannon die at all. From the moment he joins our party up until this point, if Bannon takes a dirt nap, it is game over for us. This is one of the major reasons we keep him in the back row, and we want to get smoke bombs.
Yeah, fortunately for this part, most of the enemies in this part are pretty underleveled for where we are, so this part isn't as big a deal. But on the river, those pterodons can hit like trucks. If you make a mistake in the Ultros fight, Ultros can also really rake Bannon hard. So I have definitely gotten the good old lose condition from Bannon in a few runs for sure.
Good old Bannon. You see, this is why I believe, here on Nitz's guide, this is a perfect example why we move Locke down to the bottom row. Ooh, boy, that pincer got out okay, though.
Yeah. So what can happen is that that gold bear uses gouge when Locke is facing away from him. It's almost a one shot. Like if you've taken some damage from a couple of the fights previous that you haven't healed, you can definitely die there super easily.
Yep, and here we come to the security checkpoint. Easy little puzzle here. We're just supposed to follow the light, but because we don't like to follow directions, what we're going to do is we're going to trigger the light at a specific part, and if you hold up in A at the right point, it'll automatically hit the trigger, the little gold light, and disable the security. So 1, 2, 3, done, and off we go.
Yeah, exactly. Really fortunate that the very first frame that the game reads inputs is actually one of the frames that allows you to break that.
Yep. So almost done here on. Interesting. Done here on LCC side. Edgar managed to run away from that fight. Go figure. So yeah, sometimes if you sit there and you're holding the run button and you go down to use your smoke bombs, that person could just run away. Okay, it's a fun little interaction being at full ATB and finding out, oh, he actually had full run meter.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah. Thankfully, other party members got their ATB up relatively quickly afterwards. And like I said, the enemies in this part of the cave are, back from the beginning of the game, so they're not. These ones aren't particularly a threat. It's just the one part in the cave with the wild rats in the first class that could potentially be dangerous. You can get pincered in there as well.
Yep. So, just gonna go ahead and finish up here. Fun little note about the river on Nitzguy1 right now. It's actually random to how many encounters we can get on the river. I believe you're guaranteed at least 1, but you can get up to 3. We have no. Well, there is an after river manipulation, but we don't use the after river manipulation. It's not really worth it to just manipulate those couple of encounters.
Right.
It's best to just throw your dice out there and hope to get the one encounter.
Yeah, I believe if you follow the step route perfectly for this, you get 2. I believe that's the case.
Is it guaranteed to? I'm not 100% sure.
I think if you're perfect on the step route to this point, I believe it's guaranteed to. But obviously, once you get through the Veld, whether you are or aren't on step route is pretty immaterial once you have smoke bombs, really.
Yes, we do fight Ultros on a raft, but we don't have an Ultro skip yet, so... It'd be cool if we had an Ultro skip. Can you imagine what this game would do?
Yeah.
So, here we go. LCC's coming up on the last fight here, so for anyone that may just be joining us or is confused of what's going on, this is a Kefka at Narshe race, which is about a third of the game, give or take, compared to Sketch anyway. This is our intro category for Final Fantasy VI, a little more friendlier race category. The regular categories can take upwards of 3 hours, or if you're doing glitchless, 6 hours. So instead of committing that much time, we commit this hour 30. So this is to get well, it's fun to race it first and foremost, and 2, it gets new blood into the FF6 speedrunning if they find out that they like the game. I found out I like the game, and I'm actually running glitchless myself, so we're coming up to the end of the race right here.
And we get to see the true face of evil here, the evil General Kutan.
Yep. So Takaze TV is shedding a little light out here. So the Let River, the second time, is determined by the same method that the first time around. It's the NPC movement value. You can manipulate it, but it takes too long. The more you know.
Yep, exactly. I stand corrected, and that makes total sense.
So, getting a bit of praise General Kutan here in the chat. So, back to the story.
Yeah.
Here we come up, they're like, oh boy, so here comes Kefka, and he wants that Esper, and he wants it bad. So what was it, about 10 minutes into the run, we did our little mini game of the tower defense. Get ready to do it again, boys. Yep. And girls, boys and girls. So we're gonna have a little walk up to the top of the mountain here, and then we're gonna go ahead and set up for that. But while we're going up there, I highly recommend you guys following both these runners. Nitzguy is doing a great job, even though he's a little bit behind right now. And as you see, LCC is the #1 seed for every good reason. So if you guys could throw both these guys a follow, I'm sure they would greatly appreciate it.
Yeah, absolutely. If you're enjoying what you're seeing, be sure to follow them. They would love to see you in the chats in future, I'm sure.
Yep, so, um, in this case now, because we don't have all the Moogles with us, we're gonna go ahead and make one overpowered party, and then two smaller parties there. So I'm pretty sure we're not gonna see the S risky strat from LCC here, which is the thing. But we're just gonna go ahead and sit by and watch these soldiers walk by us, and then same deal. We just need to beat Kefka, and then that will be the end of our race.
Right, and I guess we can mention too the reason why we have Kutan. Kutan is supposed to be Celis, but because we skipped her in Locke's scenario, her spot sort of gets filled by whatever the last thing that had her spot in the RAM memory was, which just happens to be Kutan, who is one of the Moogles in the previous multi-party battle, and that is permanent. Eventually, if you theoretically did the run long enough, the sprite would change back to Celeste, but she would still have Kutan's stats.
Oh, I didn't actually know that. So, the Kefka fight. So, what we're gonna want to do here is we're gonna want to cast all our powerful spells and try and reduce the amount of turns that Kefka has here by weight tricking, by being in the menu and freezing the ATBs. What we don't want to see is the third turn from Kefka, because he can cast some very nasty magic. In particular, Ice 2. He can actually multicast Ice 2 on our party, which is no good. So if we do the fight right, he should never get to the third turn and should just be easy peasy.
Yeah, so just doing enough weight tricking to delay his ATB. Like you said, you never should see it. LCC getting some decent luck on Gao here as well, getting a couple of tusks off.
Yep.
Very nice.
Yep, and his time is in. He has officially finished with a 1 hour 24 minute and 30-second run, which is phenomenal. Absolutely.
Yeah, that's
phenomenal.
flying. GG's to LCC. That's a fantastic run.
Yep, GG to LCC. And just to answer a quick question in the chat, we don't use the SNES Classic for this run because it was found that the SNES Classic is faster for the run because I believe it has less menu lag. So because it's not a readily available piece of hardware to everyone, we decided that we weren't going to use it for this tournament. So
yeah, Nitzguy is still on a pretty decent pace here. He should definitely be sub 128ing, which would win you a lot of races in the opening rounds. Just not against the LCC.
yeah, I mean, he was on really good pace at the beginning, and then a couple of things fell apart. But it's still a really good showing from him. Anything sub 130 is a very respectable time. So, same deal here. We're going to go ahead and wait for these soldiers to walk by.
Setting up here, and yeah, not going to see the thing here either, which makes complete sense.
So, here we go. Nitzguy is going to go ahead and take his fight here. Meanwhile, LCC is going to go ahead and take Terra for a world trip around the world flying with Terra. So,
yeah, good old celebration scream.
Yep. So, same deal here. We're going to use Hornet. We're going to use Orbolt, attack with Egger, and dispatch with Cyan. So, and just try to make sure that Kefka doesn't get his third turn.
Yeah, these are by far the four strongest single target characters that we have available to us here.
So, there we go. And Nitzguy has officially finished. He has finished with a 128.02. Congratulations to Nitzguy1. So
It's actually his old PB. He's actually 127.17. Or old PB on SRL anyway.
oh, excuse me, it's a 127.17. His old time was 128.02. You're absolutely